Hello, friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's good to have everybody here. We have a nice group here in the rooms of the Lucis Trust, in the office of the Lucis Trust in New York City. And I'm sure there's a beautiful group gathered online. So it's good to all be together right now. This is a Lucis Trust New Moon meditation meeting. The sun's in Sagittarius, and we have a December solstice, which is just around the corner on Sunday. The actual time of the new moon is 8:43 this evening in New York. Now, the word solstice derives from two Latin words, sol, meaning sun, and sister, which is a verb meaning to stand or to stop, or as one report notes, actually a BBC article on the solstice notes, it also means to stand still. In other words, the solstice is itself, in the life of our planet, of the Earth, an interlude in the Earth's relationship with the sun. On or near to December 21st, the sun appears to stand still, poised directly above the Tropic of Cancer, its most southerly latitude. And it's this pause that gives us the shortest day in the Northern Hemisphere and with the longest period of darkness in the annual cycle, and the exact opposite in the Southern Hemisphere, where the sun's pause marks the longest day and the maximum hours of sunlight. The other moment of pause in the sun's pendulum-like passage from north to south relative to the equator is the solstice on or around June the 21st. So we have these two points in a rhythm which we can really think of as being part of our full moon rhythm for those of us who work with the full moon meditations, because it's the rhythm of the relationship between the sun and the earth, essentially. This December solstice leads into a holiday season for most human beings, with important spiritual festivals in most of the major faiths. So it does mark an interlude time in the overall sort of rhythm of human living and the investment of sort of muscle into human life. It's an interlude is a pause. And in part, we can think of this as a rest, which in many cases, the physical holidays represent for human beings, which is really important at this time, a time of rest. But we can also think about this pause in terms of reorientation. And that's especially true with this whole idea of New Year resolutions, making a resolution, often which is in line with your conscience. And also, of course, for meditators, there's a sense of pause in terms of poise or of what is really spiritual tension, a point of spiritual tension. So together, all of us join together in the online call, and all of us here in this room enter into a moment of poise and spiritual tension, and then together sound the mantra of the new group of world servers, which is in slang, in popular slang, is the 5 o'clock mantra. May the power of the light pour through the group to the service. May the love of the soul characterize the lives of all who seek to aid the great ones. May we fulfill our part on the work through self-forgetfulness, heartlessness, and right speech. Most of us in this gathering will have some familiarity with the Alice Bailey books and their teachings on discipleship and discipleship living, which is really what these books are about. And it makes sense to ask ourselves what the energies of Sagittarius bring to this interlude time in humanity's destined adventure of becoming the world disciple. You know, this thing about this kingdom in nature, which is our kingdom, our kingdom, is in process of becoming the world disciple. Themes of intuition, vision, and purpose, or direction and goal in the discipleship life immediately come to mind when we think of Sagittarius. Following the disorientation and the upset of the testing in Scorpio, there's a pause while a new goal begins to emerge in the minds of all who are treading a discipleship path, whatever their spiritual tradition. We might think of this interlude as a time of brooding, when new possibilities for the life direction begin to emerge and begin to become alive and get focus in consciousness. Discipleship purpose deepens to the extent that the vertical dimension of identification with the sacred balances and aligns with a horizontal dimension of living in time and space, of radiation and of embodiment. And it's in this realm of purpose that Sagittarius works on the discipleship consciousness in humanity, reaching into and deepening the spirit of selfless service in individuals and groups and nations. The cyclic year-by-year Sagittarian energy, strengthening purpose. Esoterically, 2025 was significant because we are told a major hierarchical conclave took place during the year. And then next year, 2026, will carry its own significant esoteric charge, for it ends with the celebration of the festival week of the new group of world servers. This week occurs every 7 years, and 2026 is one of the more significant weeks because it includes a Capricorn full moon. As esoteric students, many of us are used to working with symbols, seeking to enter the deeper meaning and significance of the symbol in a way that unveils or reveals its essence, the essential energetic livingness hidden within the symbol. The new moon and the full moon work seeks to do this, helps us to see beyond the outer alignment between sun, moon, and earth, to consider the meaning and significance of these alignments and the ways in which they affect our understanding of and our relationship with the plan of love and light, and with its working out through human affairs and simply through our humanness. The new moon and the full moon meditations lift us as a group into the deeper relationship that is evolving between humanity and hierarchy. And the regular practice of these meditations has the capacity to transform our relationship to humanity together with our sense of group identity. Over the years, the practice of these meditations will do this. It affects our relationship with hierarchy, with humanity, and with group. It's interesting to think about the ways in which the solstices have come to be observed by the United Nations. Over the decades, the UN has developed a calendar of special days and years. Governments decide, usually unanimously, on the themes to be observed on UN days, and they often become a focal point for events around the world. A buzz of creative activity at local, national, and global levels often follows the rhythm of the UN calendar of international days and years, with sometimes big international conferences, working groups, and often myriad small local events in towns and little communities all over the place. The solstices are observed in various ways in the UN calendar. Last year, the General Assembly declared December 21st to be World Meditation Day. And in 2014, June the 21st, the other solstice, was proclaimed as International Day of Yoga. And then in 2019, June the 21st, the June solstice, was registered as International Day of the Celebration of the Solstice. And it's interesting that the only full moon day that's marked in the UN calendar is Wesak, which is always officially observed at the UN on the day of the May full moon. March 21st, the calendar date for the March equinox, is observed by the UN with a number of themes, which include the day of Nowruz, marking an ancient Zoroastrian celebration of the triumph of light over darkness, and celebrating the arrival of spring in Iran, the Caucasus, the Balkans, and beyond. And as many of us will be aware, September 21st, the September equinox, is observed as International Day of Peace, celebrated at UN headquarters in New York with a ceremony where the Secretary General ritually rings the Japanese bell of peace and calls on the people of the world to observe a minute of silence. It's actually the only ritual that's emerged in the life of the UN that has a touch of true ritual to it. Maria and I were talking about the ritual that happens at the start of every General Assembly session in September, where before the big opening meeting of a General Assembly, there's a smaller meeting with most governments present that begins, and in the Constitution of the UN, with a minute of silence. But of course, the minute of silence is really only observed as a formal minute, and everyone's walking around talking, and it's not even a full minute. But still, it's significant. Looking at these UN observances from a Sagittarian perspective suggests that perhaps they can be seen as symbols pointing to a sense of purpose quietly unfolding in humanity that we may not even be aware of. Perhaps we might see these as signs of at least a stirring of the world disciple, a movement, perhaps a movement of the heart. Many will know of the meditation room for the UN, for UN staff, diplomats, and visitors at UN headquarters in New York. It was largely designed and watched over by the second Secretary General, Dag Hammarskjöld, who wrote a short text about the room that's displayed just outside its door. It reads in part, "We all have within us a center of stillness surrounded by silence. This house, dedicated to work and debate in the service of peace, should have one room dedicated to silence in the outward sense and stillness in the inner sense. It's been the aim to create in this small room a place where the doors may be open to the infinite lands of thought and prayer." One of the great challenges facing humanity as we enter into a new era is to bring this inner sense of silence, where the sacred is encountered, back into the heart of human thought and experience, as it has been in ancient days. This is one of the most central issues needed in order to move beyond the materialism and superficiality that has become so central to modern life in so many different parts of the world. Perhaps we might think of the UN's celebration of the solstices, with a day of yoga in June and a day of meditation in December, as a sign that the recognition of a sense of a center of stillness existing within the heart of the human being is moving from being an outer symbol rather beautifully captured in one specific room on the planet, to become a living, pulsating presence in the world. It is, by its very nature, a little hidden, quiet, and behind the scenes, these two observances of the solstices. Yet, as the sense of purpose grows and deepens, it cannot help but contribute to the transformation of the sense of purpose and direction in human affairs. And even more than that, it cannot help but to move into a new phase, the spirit of invocation, which almost naturally arises from the hurt human heart that is aware of oneness, but is hurt by its apparent inability to express that spirit of oneness in community. The UN introduces the Day of Yoga, just the website on the Day of Yoga, with the suggestion that, among other things, yoga fosters a heightened sense of awareness and responsibility in daily life. And Meditation Day is introduced as fostering empathy, collaboration, and a sense of shared purpose. This year, the day was marked with the first ever UN conference held at the UN Palais des Nations in Geneva over 2 days, a 2-day conference earlier this month, on the intriguing theme, United and Present, Global Solutions from Within. Following addresses by UN officials led by the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Turk Volker, who's been probably at the most senior level, the one who's pushed for all of this work on meditation and mindfulness. John Kabat-Zinn delivered the keynote address to assembled diplomats, officials, and UN staff on the theme, the intersection of mindfulness, UN work, and diplomacy. Panels discussed over 2 days. So this is a serious event, not open to the public. So diplomats, staffers, panels discuss themes cultivating presence in diplomacy and multilateralism, and cultivating presence across institutions. This focus on presence, which I hadn't realized but is quite widespread in the mindfulness community, is now widely considered as something which is something that's of particular interest from an ageless wisdom perspective, because as we all understand, you can't approach this idea of presence without actually invoking and evoking a response to the living presence of the sacred. And it's clearly, when you look at even some of the reports of the meetings in Geneva, and Maria was telling me again about, she was from World Goodwill at the gathering here today at the UN for World Meditation Day, led by Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar. And as Maria was saying, the significantly more number of people and more interested people than last year, which was the first time it was observed at the UN. So this is growing, and this touch of actual presence is what we can expect. And that's significant to my mind. We should, of course, also note that the UN's focus on observing the solstice as World Meditation Day needs to be seen alongside other initiatives like Millions Meditating Alliance, which is, I think, a new movement this year focused on the solstice, and the recently revived Global Silent Minute, which traces its origins back to the Second World War, when Wellesley Tudor poll persuaded the BBC to observe a minute of silence at 9 p.m., just before the 9 o'clock news, and when millions of people throughout Britain and around the world observed that silent minute. In its current form, the Global Silent Minute was inaugurated, some may recall, at a Lucis Trust event during the festival week of the New World Service in 2019. And following the original rhythm, a Global Silent Minute is held every year and will be observed again at 9 p.m. GMT on Sunday, this coming Sunday, the solstice, which of course is 4 p.m. in Eastern Standard Time. So, yeah, there you go. So let's work with the meditation. Strengthening the hands of the new group of world servants. Group fusion. I am one with my brothers, and all that I have is theirs. May the love which is in my soul pour forward to them. May the strength which is in me lift and aid them. May the thoughts which my soul creates reach and encourage them. Alignment. We recognize our place as a group within the heart center, the group of world servants. And mentally extend a line of lighted energy towards the spiritual hierarchy, the planetary heart center, to the Christ, the heart of love, within the hierarchy, and toward Shambhala, where the will of God is known. The higher interlude. Hold the mind focused on the planetary role of the group of world servants, mediating between hierarchy and humanity, responding to hierarchical impression, and meditating the plan into existence. Meditation. Through the impression and expression of certain great ideas, humanity must be brought to the understanding of the fundamental ideals which will govern the new age. This is the major task of the group of world servants. Precipitation. Visualize the precipitation of the will to good, essential love throughout the planet. From Shambhala, through the planetary heart hierarchy, through the Christ, the group of world servers, through all people of goodwill everywhere in the world, and finally through the hearts and minds of the entire human family. Lower interlude. Consider all the ways in which the power of the one life and the love of the one soul are working out in the world through members of the group of world servers, and in the process, building the thought form of solution to world problems. Distribution. As the great invocation has sounded, visualize the irradiation of human consciousness with light and love and power from the point of Christ within the mind of God. Let the light stream forth into human lives. Let the light descend on us from the point of love within the heart of God. Let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth. From the center, where the will of God is known, let purpose guide all little human words, the purpose which the Masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out it, and may it seal the hope of where evil dwells. Let thy light and love and power restore the land. Oh. So friends, we have a little time to chew around the idea of the solstice, and the coming season, the Christmas season. And perhaps, I don't know if I may be the only one who finds it intriguing what's happening in the world of sort of universal meditation, entering into what seems to me to be entering into the collective life of the human in a way that it never has before.
Yeah.
What do we think? I think if friends who are on the call, if you raise your hand, if you would like to contribute something, if you'd like to say something, and those of us in the circle would just yell out.
I would say there is a great awakening going on. Absolutely. This universal sense on the grassroots level is very widespread.
It is, isn't it? It does seem to be. And I mean, I always love looking at, say, things like a profession. So look at the professional bodies, the big global, like the body of architects or the body, anything where people, a major part of people's sense of will and purpose is invested in their profession, whatever your work is. So how are those huge fields of human living responding? And in those fields, if you look, you will see that ideas of meditation, particularly this idea of presencing, like are becoming a part of the deeper conversation so that people in the new group of world servers in those professions are moving into this whole new area of consciousness. And whatever happens on the outside, we know that that is also an approach to hierarchy. That's in fact what's happening.
The Pope was recently asked what's his favorite book or spiritual, I think he was asked to describe his spiritual practice or something like that, his spirituality. And he referenced this book, an old book by a monk named Brother Lawrence called The Practice of the Presence of God.
Oh, wow.
So I mean that
Yeah, that's
bringing
exactly.
that thing of presencing is kind of interesting.
Exactly.
I just thought of that.
No, I think
Yeah.
that's the thing, the Catholic Church really interests me because also it has it's so diverse. And look at the partisan world. Well, the partisan world's present in the Catholic Church, but it's a huge, significantly portion of the human family. It's probably of any religion, it's the largest actually organized, coordinated body in any of the faiths in the world. And at its heart, particularly with the two recent papacy with Francis and now Leo, you have this deepening. And then if you look at Catholic thought, theology, it's esoteric in many ways.
But at the heart of Catholicism, in the early church, there used to be a practice called centering prayer. And then it was discarded at some point. My father was educated by Jesuits, the senior high school and college level. And in Massachusetts, he used to go to retreats out in Western Mass. And there were brothers out there in the Jesuit monastery where he went who revived centering prayer in the late 50s, early 60s. So he would go out to these retreats, Catholic retreats on centering prayer, which is basically meditation. So it's been brought back in the last 60 years to the church amongst certain circles.
It's now centering prayer is a huge movement. I think right outside sort of ecumenical in the Christian religion. It's huge.
I have to add, it's a Jubilee year
Yeah.
For the Catholic Church, it's a Jubilee year of hope. And one of the hopes that has been expressed is doing away with the debt of third world countries. That's pretty good.
There's a hand raised.
Good.
John Heron. John, you want?
Thank you, Michael. Sorry, it took me that long to find the button. Thank you, Steve. Two
Thank you,
thoughts. One is the Catholic Church is at that most unique juxtaposition of human spiritual evolution, a sixth ray institution that has kept up the seventh ray through its use of tradition and ritual throughout the many years. So in many ways, I believe, friends, that it embodies the same, shall we say, bridge, turning point of energies in which we find ourselves these days, the tension between the outgoing sixth ray and the incoming seventh ray. We know, of course, that rhythm and ritual will be an essential part of our coming world civilization and its spiritual pursuits. I love looking at the skies. I'm outside, of course. And though we know that the moon and the sun are aligned in the final degrees of Sagittarius, if we could but see behind the sun, we would note that it's right now aligned with the center of the Milky Way galaxy, the galaxy in which we find ourselves. So there's this tremendous amount of energy radiating from that quadrant now, from the center vast, unknowable rays. And if we look just to the side of the sun, don't do this in real life, of course, you would note just to the right, you would see Venus, which is going around the far side, the superior transit, soon to be the even star come this spring. And just to the left, we see Mars coming around the far side as well, but will be a morning star come spring. So there's a lot to play. And I just bring this to the group for what good, comfort, solace, and vision it might provide. Thank you.
John. Thank you so much. That takes us out into first of all, it takes us to where we think of ourselves in terms of Earth. So our identity becomes Earth, and then its relationship with this huge living system. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
The solstice as an interlude in the meditation stage is a poised period to seize opportunity, to seize the chance to enter into something greater or establish relationship with something greater. Poised moment when all the energies are focused so as to bring about something. So for us in the world discipleship group everywhere in the world, this interlude may be thought of as the point of interlude between the dweller on the threshold and the angel of the presence, where the energies of Sagittarius are providing us the energy of direction from one place, one position to another position. The dweller on the threshold of what? All the world glamours, the Mayas and the illusions constitute the dweller on the threshold. It's on the threshold of divinity towards the angel of the presence. And Sagittarius, cyclically occurring year after year, decades after decades, century after centuries, is providing us with the direction to make that movement where our poised energy can actually enter into the angel of the presence. So the summation of all the world practices of the presence in all its forms are helping the new group of world servers to make this alignment. And then they will be able to see the world issues in terms of a duality and not in terms of triplicity. When it's seen in terms of triplicity, then it becomes complicated. But when it's seen in terms of duality, then we see and understand that the dwell on the threshold is our object that we are working with in order to bring it into alignment with the angel of the presence.
Thank you, Emmanuel. It's interesting thinking in those terms of the dweller and the angel, and of the sort of pause, you know, between the two and this balance. And thinking about that pause as a very positive, evocative state.
There's a hand. Would you like to go to the hand? Peter looks real.
Hey, Peter.
Hi, thank you so much. Great talk today, and yeah, powerful in terms of just practicing the presence, meditation, hosting the presence. And when one thinks about the essence of being, and we think about that, the ray of adoration, devotion, and discipline, essentially it's the ability for the soul, one, to recognize the true identity as the soul, and the soul reaching out to the monad, the monadic presence. Now, I believe that this is not, theoretically speaking, this is known. Practically speaking, the challenge that one faces is the fragmentation of consciousness that exists within the lower, which is the etheric, and of course the astral, illusory belt. And so in order for the group of world servers to actually do the work in terms of hosting not just the present, but the cosmic, the monadic currents, for it to descend, and for the group to be the outpicturing of divinity, is the work of purification of both the etheric and the astral. And recognizing that where we place our attention, there we truly are. We can say that where attention goes, energy flows. And fundamentally speaking, we are just the field of awareness, which is pure energy. And so when the attention of the consciousness of the soul is elevated beyond the fragmentation of the outer cleavages to the monadic level of realization, then we invite that current to permeate and to be outpictured in humanity. And that's one side of the coin in regards to hosting the presence, self-forgetfulness. And the other aspect, I believe, is critical for the group at this point in time, as you mentioned, is the ideas that become the ideal for humanity, and essentially is living from the place of the causal, not living from the place of the effects. And the effect is the phenomenal world, the world of the seeing, the appearance world. And as we begin to live from the causal, which is the soul dimension, above the causal, we get into the supramental. But the soul doesn't attain to the supramental until it identifies itself at the causal. And bringing that idea and the ideal to the marketplace, that we stop taking a position of resolving outer challenges by the effects, but we start to ask ourselves the question of the causes of the effect that we are seeing in the phenomenal world. And as the group begins to place its attention and elevates its consciousness by doing the work of purification, then we can transform the marketplace in multiple dimensions. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much.
We have David Trice also. We should go
David,
with David.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Oh, Michael. I was impressed when I was growing up. I went to parochial school, Catholic school for many years, and I was always impressed with the dedication of the priests and the nuns that I ran across and was taught by. And it inspired me to be a Catholic priest for a while. That didn't work out. I wound up in the infantry, and the chaplains always impressed me as being dedicated to the Christ life. And that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, David. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for that. It's amazing the role the church has played, all the churches have played in so many lives of human beings. Gosh.
It's interesting to consider solstice and equinox rhythm. It's the rhythm of our planet. And it's quite possible that it's in the future it become that this rhythm of these festivals will become that connecting tissue for humanity, that's the foundation for the new world religion. It's something that anyone can relate regardless of their religious or cultural background, because this is related to the planet. And it's something is that can be experienced directly, what unites us. And it's also interesting to think about the presence, the continuously sounding the note of presence that comes with this rhythm. And as humanity goes now through these fires of initiation, and majority of our brothers and sisters experience chaos and devastation and loss of direction, those of us who can come into that poise and use the opportunity of this crisis as a possibility to come into this listening of the presence. That's something that's actually characterized the group of world service, because we have that capacity to listen and, as in the meditation, to be impressed and express those great ideals. So it is those two parallel processes, the process of experiences of chaos in the horizontal world, and yet being able to recognize and broadcast that note of the presence.
I mean, to me, that's I totally think, and then for every small circle to see that this idea of being present to the presence is becoming so circling prayer. It's at the heart of circling prayer work. It's at the heart of now sort of much of the mindfulness work, which is sort of huge, very big. And all like the New World religion, all the religious lives are being infused with this. So the community of the new group who are actually standing in some relationship consciously to presence, something so new. And for me, it's really heartening to for those of us who get, if we get upset about the chaos in the world, to see, well, the other side of it is this, and that's pretty significant, hugely significant. And it's not just sort of interfaith. It's not like that's the meditation room at the UN. That's what most touches me, is that it's so powerfully occult. And at the time it was done, must have been so new to have a room with no symbols attached to anything religious or even almost mythical. Just this, to me, this incredible painting of the Antakarana, but however, it can't be really interpreted by Besco's painting. Yeah, and then this block of iron and light, and that's really all it is. And it's as if all of us in this work we do, and so many other groups do, are able to have been able to bring the occult intensity almost of that room into consciousness, into something to do with human consciousness that to me is it's a sign of it's certainly a sign of progress and movement that what didn't exist at the time when DK was working with the community then.
Do we have time? Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
It's just
things.
We're not. Was just thinking, there's this, not really a story, it's just like information the Tibetan relays in one of the books, but he says that the very initiation of the mysteries on our planet, so in ancient past, the sort of dawn of man on our planet, he says that the decision was made by the hierarchy of that time to institute an occult path, basically is what the mysteries are, an occult path. He said the reason why is because it was deemed that even at that early stage, that the mystical path wouldn't be sufficient for planetary need. He says man must know not only their own divinity within himself, or his own connection to divinity, but he must know divinity in nature. And so we look at this idea that the whole point of occultism, the whole point of the mysteries from the very beginning was the revelation of the divinity within all things. So God in self and then God in nature, that sort of eternal truth, Atma, Brahma, the two being basically God, essentially. And so when we look at presencing, this practice of presencing, I think generally it's being approached basically is what we call a mystical point of view, which is fine. But you see within this idea of presencing, like the seeds of an occult approach, and especially when it's emerged with this burgeoning, ecological movement and the deep spirituality there as well. It's like you could just see in the next 50, 100 years, okay, what does that mean actually for God to be in nature? That question just taking us ever deeper. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Exactly.
Actually, thank you, because I've been reading Dora Kuntz, Christmas Angels, and they are said to be celebrating, singing at this time, Christ, God in nature. At this time of the solstice, there is much celebration among the Devic, celebrating exactly that, God in nature, Christ in nature.
Which is also interesting that DK says that the new dispensation will give the astrological key to the teaching, which if you think about esoteric astrology, it's about the livingness of all celestial beings, of all planets and all the stars,
and in relationship,
and their relationship, exactly.
Beautiful, because to me the mystical sense in, say, mindfulness, which is really a mystic path, at its deeper level then leads into an occult path, because the mind becomes engaged. And in a way, to me, when you look at, say, these UN things, that's what's happening, because they're having to create an environment that's relevant to UN work. And the actual act of having to do it must itself be incredibly invocative for those individuals who are writing stuff, to think, what the hell am I going to write? And that means your mind has to be engaged, and it has to bring in relationship to laws and principles, really, to universal laws and principles.
That was what was coming to mind to me about two things you said. I thought it was particularly interesting that John Kabat-Zinn was the one they asked to come and do that presentation, because he's been known in scientific circles for 40 years studying meditation and proving its efficacy. So to have the UN asking him to come is sort of a validation of that work, that it's finally coming around full circle, that they can recognize through science that meditation is not just mystical, it's a scientific process. And then the other thing that was occurring to me was when you were talking about the meditation room at the UN and the block of iron, I immediately thought, well, this is interesting because iron is necessary to life because it has to be part of the hemoglobin for human to be able to create oxygen. And it's also part of, iron in the blood. It's necessary element. Blood is life. So to choose an iron block to me is like a universal symbol of the blood ties us beyond race, beyond religion, beyond culture. We all share the same blood, the same hemoglobin, the same life, the same need for oxygen. And iron is principal to that. But it's one of the elements of our planet that makes life possible.
So matter, so
And it's a
matter.
square, it's a block, so it's like 4 square, life on the physical plane.
It's
Very symbolic.
it's an amazing symbol. The other thing that's happening yeah, we need to finish. The other thing, oh God, I'll shut up.
Done.
It's time to conclude.
You can
lo-
finish your thought if you,
Yeah.
you don't mind.
And
Keep going.
I think rather lovely to think of the Deva kingdom rejoicing in the Christ life and the Christ life in the human and the Christ life in the planet and the Christ life in the universe. Rejoicing as we enter into this beautiful solstice and sort of for us in the north midwinter. And that's for the vast majority of the human population lives in the northern hemisphere. So for the vast sort of just number wise of human beings and human lives, it's a winter experience, the solstice. And then for those of us who come from the southern hemisphere, we think, well, yeah, but then there's minorities also experiencing the other. Okay, so we'll conclude with a moment of quiet and just a reminder about the here we go, the meetings coming up. So the next full moon meeting, wow, will be on January the 2nd, Capricorn. So we start the year straight into the year with Capricorn. The full moon meeting on January the 2nd at 6 p.m. and the Capricorn new moon on January the 16th, another Friday again at 6 p.m. So we will gather again in this rhythm of the sun and the moon and the earth. Thank you, friends. Let's just have a moment of silence. Thank you. Go well in peace. Much love.
Happy holidays.